Hey, good afternoon to you. It's now 5:07 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Earlier this week, Joe Biden, or someone pretending to be him, announced on X that he's out of the race. He's no longer running for president, just in time for the United States Department of Justice to start admitting, yes, they do have transcripts of Joe Biden discussing stealing classified documents with his ghostwriter. For more on this story and so much more, we turn now to Miranda Devine. She's a columnist for the New York Post and the author of Laptop from Hell. Miranda, great to have you back with us.
Oh, great to be with you too, Vin.
It's hilarious. Biden no longer running, so I guess now we can find out his dirty little secrets. So the Justice Department did have a transcript of his conversations with his ghostwriter. I thought they told us they didn't.
Yes, isn't that funny? Just 2 days after Donald, whatever his name is, Joe Biden, announces he's not running, suddenly they have just a memory reload and they find that they do have this transcript. How strange. I'm sure we'll have a lot of information that will be coming out of the woodwork now that Joe Biden's no longer the protectee.
Yeah, so now we're hearing the Justice Department told us that there was no transcript, and now they're admitting in court, actually, we do have one. Weren't they lying in their court filings?
Looks like they were lying. How convenient that they are now discovering that there is a transcript of Joe Biden's conversation with his ghostwriter. And the other piece of news from the DOJ is that they are now asking Robert Hur to help them comply with these numerous FOI, Freedom of Information requests that have flooded in about that very strange conversations or series of interviews that Robert Hur, the special counsel, had with Joe Biden that forced him to conclude that Joe Biden was so far gone in the memory department, in the cognitive impairment department, that he would not be able to stand trial. He wasn't fit to stand trial. That was a bombshell at the time. And remember the kind of attacks and assaults on Robert Hur that were made by the Democrats and their friendly media.
Right. And so in the wake of the Hur report, the current frontrunner to be the nominee for the Democrats, Kamala Harris, she came out and condemned Robert Hur for lying. And she insisted, this is not the Biden I know. Biden's totally of sound mind. That narrative has changed quite a bit, actually, since Kamala Harris said that. Do you think we will ever hear the audio of Robert Hur's conversation with Joe Biden?
Well, I think there's a much higher chance now that we will hear it than before. And I think it really probably helps the Democrats to sort of explain to people who are probably quite shocked out there in their voterland at having the president pushed aside and his cackling vice president put in his place. And they will be, the news has gone so fast in the last week or two that I wouldn't blame anybody for not keeping up and just waking up thinking, what happened? So I think it's in the Democrats' best interest to sort of explain, and what better way to explain that Joe Biden sort of shot in the head, not a very good explanation to use there, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
That he's really ailing cognitively.
He's too far gone.
To let people listen to that tape. They ought to.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be keeping anything like that hidden from us. But we've had 4 years of lies about Joe Biden's fitness and his mental acuity, and Kamala Harris has been the chief liar among those. I mean, she boasted the other day about how she spent every day with Joe Biden, and she's told us numerous times how mentally acute he is. So she knew that he wasn't, and she lied. Yes,
she did. That's for sure. Also, she wasn't spending 40% of her vice presidency in Delaware, so how could she spend every day with Biden? That on its face, it's a lie. Miranda Devine, few people are as familiar with the Biden family corruption as you are. The fact that Joe Biden was able to be forced out of this race by the Democrat Party elders, Do you think that he or Hunter or Jill or Frank, any of them, scored some sort of golden parachute in order to make this happen?
No doubt. There's no way that that family would have allowed Joe to voluntarily step aside, because remember, it was his choice. It was the president's choice. And, the party elders, people like Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama,
Yes.
were twisting the screws to make it so painful that finally he had to cry uncle. But before he did, there is no doubt that he will have extracted the ultimate exit package, the ultimate golden parachute, and that would have included pardons definitely for Hunter, perhaps for also Joe's younger brother, Jim Biden, who has some legal troubles of his own, and also such goodies as perhaps, a presidential library along the lines that Barack Obama is having built for him in Chicago. And in that presidential library, of course, would be grace and favor jobs for various family members at inflated prices. And no doubt there will be jobs, book deals, etc. The Biden family has lived off Joe Biden's power and influence for nigh on half a century, and there is no way that they're all going to go starving now. They will make the maximum benefit of this moment of power, the last moment of power that Joe Biden will ever have.
I have a theory that I think you'll agree with, which is that the donors to the left basically made an offer to the Bidens that they would give a tremendous amount of money both to him and to Kamala's candidacy if he stepped out. In other words, a quid pro quo. And that may be manifesting itself as we speak. I'm looking at headlines today. The Democrats have already gathered more than $100 million in donations in just the last 48 hours or so for Kamala Harris. And additionally, in your publication, the New York Post, Reid Hoffman is coming in as a mega donor to Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. This is the guy who's funded all sorts of lawfare against Donald Trump's in the courts, including the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit against Trump. So the left's money forces are mobilizing. You think they had a hand in helping get Biden out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where the money comes from, and it's the same money that is being lavished, $200 million of it, on Barack Obama's presidential library. These are the people who propped Biden up to the very end. They are exercised completely by their fear of Donald Trump winning again. That's all that counts. It's power. It's ensuring that their team, their party does not lose in November, and they'll do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. And, I spoke to somebody close to the Biden family on the weekend when this was all sort of being mulled, and this person was scathing about the way the Democratic Party was going about trying to dislodge Joe Biden by threatening him. He got his Irish up by making public pronouncements. Instead of, this person said, working behind the scenes with him to see if they can do a deal. And effectively, that's what Joe Biden was holding out for, and that's presumably what he got.
How much does the Democrat Party hate the voters, Miranda Devine? Because, they rigged their own primary for Biden's benefit. Then they decided they didn't like Biden, so now they've rigged the arrangement so that the party elders choose Kamala Harris to be the replacement. As Kamala Harris is contemplating a vice presidential running mate, apparently they don't want to choose anybody but a white man because they think the voters are too racist to go for a ticket that doesn't include a white man. How much hatred does this party have for the American electorate?
I'm not sure it's hatred. It's really this sort of condescension and contempt. They feel about their own voters that they're just sheep who will fall in line. And, they feel the same way about the media, the sort of so-called, elite media like the New York Times, Washington Post. You just watch the way they've fallen into line. They're now running ridiculous stories about Kamala Harris, like they used to about Joe Biden eating ice cream. Now they've got cooking videos of Kamala Harris, and they're waxing lyrical on CNN and MSNBC how, her speech gives them tingles and makes them feel so great. I mean, they're all giddy and giggling. They've all fallen into line, and the Democratic Party obviously believes that its voters will also fall in line. And they have demonized Donald Trump to such extent that I think it wouldn't matter who they had as their candidate. A lot of their voters, all of voters, will vote for anybody over Donald Trump. And the hatred that they've engendered for Donald Trump over the last 4 years, I think you see and manifested 10 days ago, 11 days ago in the assassination attempt.
Yeah, and it is honestly so crazy to see every one of these stories develop, and they always express the same thing about the left, which is the heartlessness and the contempt, as you put it. I just saw the former RNC chairman, if you can believe this guy was RNC chairman, Michael Steele, posted today on X. He posted an AI-generated image of Kamala Harris as Captain America with a this is the most cringy thing he's done in a long time, and he's got a lot of that. And he says, hey, real Donald Trump, are you ready for this? How is this guy the head of the Republican National Committee at one point? He's tweeting fake, fanfic of Kamala Harris as Captain America?
Well, the fact that he was the head of the RNC explains a lot about why Donald Trump came to the fore. I mean, you had McCain and Romney, just complete losers. You had George W. Bush start these disastrous wars. The Republican Party was really on the nose, and that is why Donald Trump and the populist movement has taken over. And all I can say is that good riddance to bad rubbish. And now these are never Trumpers. They're aligning with the Democrats, despite all the destruction that the Democrats have done to the country. And Joe Biden was totally in the thrall. A fake moderate, he was totally in the thrall to the left. And now the mask is off, and Kamala Harris is there. For all the philosophy she has, it's really just about her and getting ahead. She's very good at that. But her philosophy is a far left one, and that's why you've seen the progressives in the party rally around her.
And it is funny, and now that you mention it, I haven't seen Kamala Harris happier than the last 24 hours. Every time I see her, she looks overjoyed. She's so over the moon that this has all fallen in her lap, which is typical, which is totally typical. Miranda Devine, thank you, from the New York Post. Always such a pleasure to talk to you. Really appreciate your time today.
And you too, Vince. Good to talk.
Nice to chat. It's 5:20 now. Let's go to the phones. I've got Anna calling in from Lake Park, Georgia, now on line 6. Anna, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
Hello. I love your show. You do a really good job.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, so I don't know if you thought about this, and I would really like to hear what you think about it. But after, you get over the shock and you get to think for a while, okay? And my first thought was, because right away that Cheadle should have resigned, but then why didn't Trump come out and demand her resignation? And I kind of got a little upset. I got all worked up because the other thing that I thought of is that everybody on that security detail that day, if I were Trump, I would make sure that none of those people were allowed anywhere near my security anymore. I would demand it. And see, I know this is the thing that I'm thinking. He may spend a lot of time with some of these people.
Yeah.
And, we all know, I know he's a professional. We all know when you're in a business relationship, you can be friendly, but not friends. And I'm wondering if he's got misplaced priorities and why his children haven't come out. And I mean, because if I was his daughter, if I was his wife, I would come out and I would have demanded by now that woman resign. Mm-hmm. I think if he had put his force behind that, she wouldn't have been able to hang on as long as she did. Uh-huh. And I would be out there just really hitting it hard and saying, we need answers, because he has been traumatized by this, even if he's not showing it. Okay. But the thing of it is that there's a man who's dead. What happened to
Corey Comparator?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What happened to him is what we would have seen. We turned on the TV that moment, the couple of minutes before that happened, we would have seen his brains all over the place.
Yep.
That's a reality.
Yep.
And so I just wonder what you think. I feel like there's something going on here. Why isn't he coming out more forcefully, putting his weight behind getting rid of these people, getting answers?
Yep.
And the other thing is with Cheadle that I think we should make sure there is no pension for her.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's security clearance who was involved with this needs to be revoked, okay? And they should be denied the opportunity to ever work in the federal government again.
It was a spectacular failure that doesn't deserve any reward from the American people. I totally agree with you, Anna. Hold on. I will answer your question. The question is, why didn't Trump come out and demand Kim Cheadle's resignation? Why did he maintain some relative silence on the subject? I'll answer Anna's question in just a moment here on the Vince Coglianese Show. A lot more ahead. Good afternoon to you. 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Before we went to the news, got a call from Anna from Georgia, who was wondering why it is that President Trump hadn't more forcefully and with volume and repetition come out and demanded Kim Cheadle's resignation as the Secret Service director in light of the fact that he was shot in the head now 10 days ago, and she held on to her job until now. It's a great question. And here's one of the ways I viewed President Trump in the wake of all of this. First of all, is there any question whatsoever that he was the victim in this? Is there any question whatsoever? Well, the answer to that is no. Any American, including people who don't like him, if you had your eyes open and saw what happened, you know that he was the victim here. So there's no question on that subject. Additionally, what we've seen from President Trump this cycle, meaning in 2024, is a discipline that has worked to his advantage about events that are going his way. So when President Trump is going to that courthouse in New York each day, and he gives a statement in the morning and the evening, he doesn't take questions from the press. The press are firing off questions. He just turns around, walks away, not creating any chaos for himself, just going out there, giving his statement, walking away. And it worked to his advantage. He had discipline. He didn't just take random questions. He didn't allow people to lead him down stupid, destructive paths. Instead, he rejected the efforts to do that and gave comments on his own terms and succeeded. And how do we measure that success? Well, the polling, the fundraising, the support, the demographic change for supporting Republicans all across the country. President Trump is doing things that are totally historic when it comes to the voters right now. And that is a product of, first of all, his presidency, which we already experienced, and people would prefer to have that back, so many, and also the way that he's conducting this campaign. So that was the courthouse experience. What about the debate? President Trump stands on a debate stage, and Joe Biden lights himself on fire like he's a protester outside the Israeli embassy. That happened. We all saw it happen. Joe Biden failed completely on national television. Now, we could get into the reasons that the left wanted to put him in front of us in June of this year, to have him go through that experience of self-immolation this early in the cycle, to use that as a predicate to give him the boot, to try and convince their base that that was a worthy endeavor so they could replace him, use the party elders to do it. But still, we saw Biden implode. What did Trump do on that stage? He barely said a word about it. He answered questions. He gave one little shot that was like, I don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows either. And then he went on with his answer. He didn't spend a lot of time digging the knife in. He didn't have to. His glances did most of the work in that debate, where he would just look over at Joe as this thing was collapsing in front of him. And what happened in the wake of that? Trump succeeded. Trump succeeded. He succeeded in terms of both support and fundraising. And now this near-death experience that President Trump experienced, and the sadness of losing a great American, a firefighter, one of his supporters that day, Corey Comparator. Just an awful experience. And what happened in the wake of that? Well, he went to the convention. He kind of kept his head down all week. He attended all those events. He didn't say much. He was going to save his speaking for his actual speech, his record-long speech at the Republican convention. But that's what he did. He maintained discipline amidst all of this. And it was evident to every American that what happened to Trump was completely awful. He didn't need to say it was awful to emphasize that point. It was completely awful. And it's also evidence on its face. It's evident on its face that Kim Cheadle needed to resign. In every other environment, any organization, if you have a failure that's that spectacular, and few organizations rise to that level because few organizations are responsible for keeping people alive. But for those organizations who are, if that's your only job and you fail at that, obviously the boss needs to go. If you're a Navy captain in charge of a ship and your ship runs aground, you will be removed. That's how it works. Doesn't matter if it was a direct result of you didn't say steer into that rock, but you will be removed. If you fail in your core mission, which is to keep that ship from running aground, protect those sailors, you're going to be removed. And so as a result, under normal circumstances, Kim Cheadle is removed by a healthy, functioning organization. Now, Biden is anything but healthy and functioning. The history of the Biden administration is a long litany of failures, despite what you're hearing this week from Kamala and her fluffers. All the people around, oh, it's big success. What a successful presidency. He's historic. Yeah, he's historic, but not for the reasons they say. The damage that he has wrought to this country is historic in its size. But to answer Anna's question, I think the reason President Trump didn't say much about this is because it's evident on its face that this is what needs to happen. The Secret Service director needs to go. She needs to be fired, first and foremost. But absent that, she needs to resign. And it doesn't take President Trump saying that at all. In fact, Democrats and Republicans were unified in that view yesterday, as they call, well, not all of them, but most of the Democrats. Resign. This can't happen. And so he didn't need to say anything. He didn't. He was right, I think, to stay above it all, stay above the fray. It made him look like he had a confidence, a maturity, the ability a strength, really. As he didn't get too emotional about it, he's just grateful to be alive, and he's letting the chips fall where they may. And I think as a result of that, I think a lot of people are looking at him going, man, this is impressive. This is really impressive. I know Elon Musk had started moving in Trump's direction and in the right's direction. He's had it with the left. And we get this audio in the last 24 hours. Elon Musk is he talked to Jordan Peterson about what was that moment when he decided he's got to destroy what he calls the woke mind virus. And he said it was when he lost his son to the trans cult. It was the trans cult. It attacked his family personally. And he didn't realize what he was dealing with as it confronted him. Listen to this audio. I want to share this with you. And then I want to get back to Elon Musk and his role for Donald Trump now.
It happened to one of my older boys, where I was essentially tricked into signing documents for one of my older boys, Xavier. This was before I had really any understanding of what was going on, and we had COVID going on, and so there was a lot of confusion. I was told, Xavier might commit suicide if he.
That was a lie right from the outset.
Incredibly evil.
You can tell, can't you tell? You can hear how tortured he is as he relives this.
And I agree with you that people that have been promoting this should go to prison.
That's
so I was tricked into doing this, it wasn't explained to me that puberty blockers are actually just sterilization drugs. Anyway, and so I lost my son essentially. They they call it dead naming for a reason.
Yeah,
All right. So the reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead. So my son Xavier is dead, killed by the woke mind virus.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and there's lots of people in that situation now.
Right.
It's not pretty, and lots of demolished kids.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a good reason to be the final straw. All right, so let's.
So I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that. And we're making some progress.
Join the club.
Yeah.
Some intense pauses as he relives all of that. Elon Musk explaining the left came for his family, and now he's coming for them. So in the wake of the assassination attempt on President Trump, what changed for Elon Musk? Well, he came out and he endorsed Trump. Immediately after that, he said, that's it, I'm endorsing him. Remember that? Did you see this X post? I know in the chaos of all of the shooting, you probably cared very little about who was tweeting their support at that point, but Elon Musk was among the people who did that, and he began pledging his war chest to Trump, meaning the money that he's got. He's got a lot of money. It's actually one of the defining features. When you talk about Elon Musk, if somebody were to ask you, who's Elon Musk? Well, at any given point, he's the richest man in the world, at least that we can measure. And he has pledged a lot of money to try and help Trump get across the finish line here and help those of us who'd like to see America restored to something more normal get across the finish line. And so that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And, President Trump didn't need to say anything to induce that. He just needed to be who he is. And Elon Musk came along and said, I'd like a part of this. I'd like to be a part of this. And I'd like to, as he pointed out, fight back against the woke mind virus. Now, where is the polling right now? What is happening in this country? Well, I can tell you that in the swing states, things have looked very good for Trump, including with Kamala Harris on a ticket. In fact, Kamala Harris performs worse than Biden, according to a lot of surveys in the swing states. So this has a big chance of really blowing up in the face of the left. The New York Times reports this week that Kamala Harris is the least electable Democrat of the Democrats who would be possibly at the top of the ticket this cycle. So that should give you some encouragement. The New York Times panicking about this. But on the other hand, we have a new Reuters Ipsos poll out today. Headlined, exclusive, Harris leads Trump 44% to 42% in U.S. presidential race. Vice President Kamala Harris opened up a marginal 2 percentage point lead over Republican Donald Trump after President Joe Biden ended his reelection campaign and passed the torch to her, according to a new Reuters Ipsos poll. That compares with a marginal 2% deficit that Biden faced against Trump in last week's poll before his Sunday exit from the race. The new poll conducted on Monday and Tuesday followed both the Republican National Convention, where Trump on Thursday formally accepted the nomination, and Biden's announcement on Sunday that he was leaving the race and endorsing Harris. Harris, whose campaign says she has secured the Democratic nomination, led Trump 44 to 42% in the national poll, a difference within the 3 percentage point margin of error. So a couple of things to point out, caveats here. One, this is registered voters, not the far more useful likely voter assessment. Two, this is a national survey. And in the end, if you're playing this game based on only national poll numbers, you're doing it wrong. It's really critically based on the must-win states, the swing states. That's how you win a presidential election. You need electoral college votes. So a national poll is far from giving us a complete picture of how things are going. But I will say I'm encouraged by this number for one reason. Don't you want Republicans across the country to be running just a little scared that they're about to lose? Don't you want that? You know you do. You want people to be convinced that their vote is essential to get this thing across the finish line. You don't want anybody you know to sit back and just rest under some sort of false impression that Donald Trump and company have this thing in the bag. That's the last thing you want. So if anything, I'm perfectly fine with polls that show things close. I'm perfectly fine with polls that show that Kamala Harris has the edge. Good. Good. Maybe that'll induce some turnout. Get Republicans to make this thing, as Trump says, too big to rig. Additionally, we have a memo out today from a Trump campaign pollster. You may have heard his name before. It's a fun name to say. Tony Fabrizio. And here's what he says. Quote, given what has happened over the past couple of days and her impending VP choice, there is no question that Harris will get her bump earlier than the Democrats' convention. Bump in the polls. This is the Trump campaign believes that a real bump for Kamala Harris is coming, if not happening right now. And that bump is likely, he continues, that bump is likely to start showing itself over the next few days and will last a while until the race settles back down. Until the race settles back down. So in other words, this is totally expected. They're expecting a little bit of a surge of interest. Kamala Harris is out there smiling it up. She's so excited to have Biden out of her way. Finally, the presidency is within her grasp. She's probably annoyed that he didn't resign outright. I imagine that phone call over the weekend when the two of them spoke, to the extent that happened. Maybe Jill handled it. And Kamala waiting, hoping. She's like, well, is he resigning? Is it happening now? Is it now? No, it's not happening now. But man, how many questions have you had about Joe Biden's health over these last few days? Biden, who wasn't seen in public, really, until today. He wasn't seen in public until today. Last week, he was being lifted into a vehicle because he couldn't get in under his own power. And he's been in Delaware the past few days. His doctor keeps on releasing updates saying, oh, he's shipshape. He's doing great. And finally, we see this guy head back to the White House today, gingerly walking up and down the stairs of Air Force One, the short stairs. You're holding your breath as you're watching this guy. Biden's health is going to play a really important role ahead of Election Day. It's going to play a very important role. I'll explore it with you in just a moment. Hold on. Yeah, look, President Biden's done a lot of damage to the country, and it'll be good to not have him in office anymore. But I got to say, in my house, we always pray for the president. We pray for his soul, and we pray for his health. Biden needs to stay alive. I'm telling you. And the reason for that, especially before Election Day, is the last thing we want to do is turn the news cycle over to a Biden funeral. Kamala Harris, consoler-in-chief, flags at half-staff, weeks of mourning for a fallen president. Please, Biden needs to stay healthy. In fact, President Trump should extend an invitation to him and keep him safe at Mar-a-Lago. Hey, we'll keep you here. We'll build a sanctuary here for you. I've got a perfectly good, secure location to keep you in. We'll keep you healthy all the way through Election Day. Come on, Joe. Come on down. The weather's nice down there in Florida. Mar-a-Lago. Actually, it's a little hot right now this time of year. But going into the election, everything should be really nice. Again, the last thing we want is for him not to be doing well and for things to take a worse turn. Although in the Biden family, you heard Frank Biden was telling people this week, yeah, I'm just looking forward to spending whatever time he has left. Oof, that's foreboding. All right, stay with us. We've got, Chris Wray tomorrow testifying. We got a lot of big news ahead, and we'll be sorting through it for you here on WMAL. The great one, Mark Levin, up next.